Okay, we're about to start, everyone, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, my lovelies. So I'm Lizzie from Love from Lizzie, and today we're going to be doing a live making with the One Sheet Wonder with our latest winter retreat card kit. I must at this point also say that we have got very limited stocks of this kit left. It's gone like crazy, which is a really lovely problem to have, but I'm just letting you know in case this was one that you were hoping to get your hands on. So we've had a super busy weekend this weekend. We had our Wicked Witches virtual retreat. If you joined in on that, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I had a great time. I was absolutely shattered come Sunday evening, but that is the best kind of shattered to be, I must say. Thank you everyone for coming along, and let's get into doing some making. So I have had a dry run of this One Sheet Wonder, and it's an idea that I've been playing with for some time. So I have already used some of the patterned paper that comes in the kit. So all I suggest that you do is you pick 2 sheets. Now I'm going to use these 2 because I want to have a busier pattern. When we're doing One Sheet Wonders, it really does make a big difference using a nice tight repeating pattern, because the larger the pattern, the more spread out things can be. But I'm going to show you the cards that I made using the One Sheet Wonder. And it's a One Sheet Wonder that's a bit of a cheat because we use 2 sheets of pattern paper. But as you can see, the small repeating print makes a big difference on these. So that's the dry run that I took to make sure that it would work, because what we're going to do is we're going to design this One Sheet Wonder together. Now obviously I tested it to make it work, but this isn't something that I've found online. This is me with a pencil and a ruler and the back of the patterned paper. So you could make this with 1 sheet before I get a sarcastic comments from someone or another, but I think this is going to work really well with 2 sheets. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start essentially cutting my paper up. That's the bit that's important. So I'm going to use the lines on my grid mat because I can't hang my T-square ruler over the edge with you still being able to see it. So the first mark that I'm going to make is 4 inches across. That is going to be this line. Flip my ruler upside down so that it's flat now. But I'm going to do a 4 inch from the top, and we're going to come down 5 to 5 inch mark. That's going to be our first line. And then we're going to go all the way across on the 1 inch mark at the bottom. That's going to go from one end of the paper all the way across to the other. Now you can just go straight in and do this on your trimmer if you want. And if that is the case, do this cut first, because you don't want that cut running down there. Next, I'm going to make a mark at the 3 inch, just to section between, just to split this bottom section into 2 pieces. And then over here, this is what we're going to be measuring at. It's going to get split in half at 2.5 inches. And now my ruler's upside down, but that's 2.5. And then we're going to split it at 1 1/4 here. And then that will make this, oh my gosh, this is making my brain work, 4 3/4. So that we have split this into 4 equal sections. Okay, so I'm going to draw those lines across. And I'm hoping that this pencil is showing up enough for you on screen, but I will zoom it in in a moment so that you can see, because this is very nearly done. Now, the final line you may prefer to do once everything's cut. However, the final line is 1.5 inches from the bottom here, and we're going to go up to the 4-inch mark on my mat. So look, I'll draw it and then I'll explain it. So this is 1.5 inches up from this line. So from the bottom is 2.5 inches, and that is 1 inch higher, so it's a diagonal line. So I'm hopeful that that's clear. So we've marked off 1 inch from the bottom and split it at 3 inches. We've come across 4 inches, drawn down, and then these are 1.25 inch each to separate that all. And then we've done a diagonal line there. I don't need to mark it onto the second sheet because I'm going to hold them together and I'm going to trim them at the same time. So, first cut will be this 1 inch cut. I'll pop you back on the overhead so that it's not bug-eyed. So that 1 inch mark, we'll snip straight down, put those together there. Now I'm going to cut that 4 inch line. Pop those there. I'm going to hold these two very, very tight as I line this up. Now, my pencil line, I'm going to get this line on my blade, and then once that's in place, I will hold this top bit so that it anchors still and spin that bottom bit so that both ends of the line are on my cutting blade. Cut those. Right, they get to go over there. These ones, I'm going to do my level best to keep them the right way up. So these are 1, 2, 5. So they go there. Take off another 1, 2, 5, which takes us down to 2.5 inch. And now down to finally 1, 2, 5 itself. Okay, so now I'm going to keep those all in the line that they were in. This one, I'm cutting at the 3 inch mark. Okay, so we now have all of our pieces cut. So we're going to need 5 card bases. Thankfully, I have found some that I had made earlier, which makes that much easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we have the joy of adding this all together. Now, matting and layering is a really, really pretty way to give cards a little pop, or to use a different, a coloured card base. But let me show you what we've just done. So, because we had these 2 pieces of paper on top and cut them at the same time, we now have the ability to flip them about. So, and because we did this as 4 inches by 5 inches, that leaves a really lovely little gap around the edge. And then when we stick the bottom one with a similar gap at there, we get a nice gap in the middle as well. So that's worked out really well. And that was actually intentional. It wasn't a happy accident. So we have 1, and then we have 2. So they're 2 of our cards. Now these ones, I really like the look of them all stuck in a row, all 4 pieces, which would also make for a really good landscape card, depending on the orientation of your paper. Now I've picked 2 papers that work both this way and this way. But the last ones that I did, if I can find the correlating card, here we go. These would not have worked on a landscape because the trees would have been on this side and so would the houses. So consider a little bit the orientation of your paper when you're thinking to assemble your cards. But then I have this one. And now if we flip these all at once, then everything stays the same, which is what I want to have. I like the patterns to be able to continue. Can you see that makes sense? The wood all marries up. So now there's lots of different ways to attach this down. So I'm going to take these two and these two to be a card. And we can play. There's so many different configurations that work and that will look nice. I think we'll go with that one for this. And then the final card. They will, of course, all it is whatever you like the look of. I think I'll do that because then it's different again. I did this and I did this with the other two. So that is 4 different designs. So I'm going to start sticking these down. And before I do, I'm just going to consider the fact that I'm going to have my stamp set and my ephemera ready to play. Stamp set, ephemera. Let's get out the mini hearts. Yes, let's leave it at that. Okay, so we might actually want to use some of the add-on specialty cardstock as well, because I think this mink, particularly with these 2 colours, would look really good. So let's just pop the smallest of strips. So I'll measure it because I'm showing you all. It's only fair. If I snip an inch off of the ends, off of our mink. Let's move these out of the way. And then what we'll do is we'll try to remember that's the rough pattern. I'm going to start sticking some of these bits down. And I'm going to remember that this is going to be slightly longer. Guess who left their glue lid off all for the last couple of days? Whoops. Let's see if we can get that going again. No, it doesn't want to play ball. It's too cold. You know what? It is actually snowing here. Is it snow? Oh no, not right in this moment. But we've had about 6 inches of snow yesterday, and yeah, that was a lot. It's beautiful, absolutely stunning though, I must say. I do love waking up and the room being so bright behind the blackout curtains that you just know. Okay, I'm going to pop those, and then perhaps let's grab out the, there we go. Oh, the white with the silver is going to look amazing with this. Just a tiny little pop. Any of them would work, to be honest. I could use the mink, the brown, even the apple looks really nice. Oh, I'm torn now. So I'm going to stick with my initial, which was the white. So please excuse the tape happy there. Now I'm going to take the middle width, which tends to actually be the one that I reach for the most. I love the super skinny and I love the wider one, but the middle width, it's just enough of a colour, especially when it's got a finish on it, that you get to see it. And then I'm going to tap the end down. Let's just... So I'm having to use my tools a lot more. I take my my homegrown tools for granted, clearly. Right, okay, so I've popped one of the peel-offs on either edge there. So that one doesn't look quite straight, so I'm going to just peel that back up. That looks better. I don't want a crooked peel off. Okay. Now I'm going to stagger these on that piece. And then yes. I'm going to stick those all flush because I'm going to do my ephemera piece that we pick 3D. So I'm measuring up so that there's sort of that's an 1/8 of an inch gap there. And then I'm going to match, no I'm not, I'm going to match the 1/8 of an inch gap underneath, and I'm going to put this on that 1/2 inch line on my grid mat there. So that I'm working with numbers in the hope that that makes it more pleasing to the eye. So about 1/8 of an inch from the edge again, so that it's in line with that darker one, and about 1/8 of an inch below the patterned one above. One of the good things about using repositionable tape is that when you stick things too far apart, you get to pull them back up again and make good. So I need to have them a little bit tighter than I had placed them. Just to make sure that they're all going to fit comfortably on my card front. 3 cheers for repositionable tape, everyone. Okay. So now I've stuck my pieces of paper onto my card. Going to pick a piece of ephemera and a sentiment. So just going to play around and have a look at what would fit where. And I think this is probably my favourite of the sentiments. And I'm going to need some ink. So I think which to go with. I should really swatch out all of my inks because I have got, as you can see, hundreds of them, but they're not all swatched. So I think I'm going to go with iced spruce. I think that will work the best here. So in theory, I should be able to come straight to it. There we go. That wasn't too sad. Took longer than I wanted, but not too bad at all. Now, okay, iced spruce. We're going to throw the acrylic block and make lots of noise. Now I'm going to move everything out of the way. And make sure that I'm happy with where I've got my sentiment, and I could move it across. In fact, let's move it to the middle of that gap. Now, going to give it a good inking. Remember that you are amazing. Sometimes it's really nice to go with a super contrasting ink, and you could have gone with, you know, like a really nice deep blue would have worked well with this, or a red. There's a, yeah, when the tones are this neutral, you kind of get to pick and go with the, go with what you fancy or what matches your ephemera or your ribbon or whatever it is that you're decorating with. Now, I'm going to give this a quick wipe. And I think on this one, instead of using my mini hearts, I am actually going to use some of these lovely, I'm going to use the little stars. So I'm going to pop these onto an acrylic block. I'm going to use that same ink to keep it all nice and uniform. And then just scatter, twisting the block, some of these little stars. And you could change the colour to add some variety. But it's just like, just a little spray here and there. I think I'm going to leave it at that because it's very easy to just keep going. And there are these lovely dots. In fact, I'm going to leave it there, she says. And then she's like, oh no, actually I'm going to use the lovely dots because they are really pretty. Let's pop that there. Now, I'm going to take a risk because it is a brand new stamp and I'm putting it on a block. I'm going to rub it over my hand, which is permanently being creamed at the moment. And I am going to stamp this either side of that sentiment there and hope for the best. Oh, that one worked. Let's hope this one does. There we go. So this could actually, for this design, be stamped on either end of all of them. Maybe we should do that with the next one. Anyhow, let me pop those there. Let's move into the next card. But I'm going to call this one done. And these cards are great for masculine cards because they're neutral tones. It's not floral or butterflies or sparkly, which obviously is my favourite, but I managed to get a little bit of shine in the background there. So that's our first card. And then our second one, we decided to put like this. And I think let me have a look. I think what we're going to do is stamp our centre. Okay everyone, are we still here? Back again, slight technical issue there. But I think I'm going to grab my sentiment and I'm going to stamp this onto a piece of cardstock. So let me just grab from my handy stash a sheet of cardstock. Right, okay. And then this is going to get stamped on, and I'm going to die cut as well for this one. Right, so I've got my cutting plates. And let's go with background builder 2. We'll take the 2 circles. In fact, no, we'll just take the outer scallop circle. So I think, lovely. That's going to work really nicely. So background builder 2, mine is obviously very well loved here, but I'm going to snip a piece of cardstock down so that it will comfortably fit through my die cut machine. And we're going to stamp our sentiment. Now, when you're using a die like this that's solid, it's not quite so easy to look through and be able to work out where and what you want. So I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to pop, just double check that I've cut it big enough. I have. I'm going to pop my sentiment right into the middle there. And now using this same iced spruce, going to ink up "You've Totally Got This," which I think is a really lovely sentiment. It works for so many different things. You know, you're about to sit your finals or cold feet before getting married. I don't know. Anything that you just want to give someone that little bit of encouragement. You know, maybe you're just about to move house. Maybe you're just about to have a surgery. Maybe one of a million things. Who knows what's stressing someone out. But receiving a card saying "You've totally got this" is such a lovely touch, I think. Right, so. Okay. That is cleaned, but we're going to move this out of the way for now. Now, this die, I'm just going to pop straight over. So as you can see, the die is framing that perfectly. And at this point, tape it down so that it doesn't go anywhere. Now, the next die, I'm going to flip it over, obviously. And now I'm going to ignore my sentiment and I'm just going to look at the gap around the edge because I know that my sentiment is right in the middle. And now that inner die matches up with the outer die. So let's just pop this through our little cuttle bug, which is all nice and handy on the desk. Okay. Because there are 2 dies in this sandwich, I am going to just pull it back on itself. Okay. And I can check before I remove the tape that that's all come out lovely. And now I can remove all of the pieces of tape. And now I have my, I'll pull you in on the close-up actually, so that you can see better. But you've totally got this, and it's also got that really nice, it's like dot stitching around the edge, which I think works really nicely with this. So let's use decisions. Yes, I'm going to use the dots. I really do think the dots look nice, and it's going to be a case of I'm going to spread the pieces like this, and I'm actually going to stick them down because it will be easier to stamp once I can see where my pieces of paper are than it will be to try to match them up after the fact. So I'm going to line my card base up using the lines on my grid mat. I can see that this is the middle line here. So I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap between the pieces and slight gap at the top. And then I will do exactly the same. And as I say, for some people, it is much preferred to put the T-square ruler down, lay the paper down, and then you can lay the paper up against that and you know your line is straight. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. And to make sure that I'm back in the middle again. There's my middle line. Here we go. So when I do these one sheet wonders, I do have an idea of where I'm going to go, in so much as I have an idea of what I'm going to cut and how I'm going to cut it. But how I decorate them it's always up in the air still. So it's going to go like that, and I'm going to use, well, there's so many options, isn't there? Yeah, but let's start by inking some dots. I do like the idea of the dots. So halfway on my card base, it's going to be here. I'm not going to come in from the edge somewhat and just stamp. And then I'm going to flip the card round and do exactly the same on the other side, because this way they will be radiating out from our sentiment, which I think is going to look fun. Here we go. And then we'll use our little stars, because there is stars also in the sentiment there. You can stamp over the paper. That must also be noted. Our paper is not one of those shiny ones. It's non-porous, so it will allow you to stamp straight on top. And here we are. You've totally got this. I'm going to lift this up on some foam, which I had left over from the weekend, which worked out nicely. So this is a double thickness for what I usually go for. You've totally got this. And then we've got some gems. There's my embellishment bag. It's run away from me. Now, depending on how far you want to go with this, you could, if you wanted to, really jazz up this die cut, going all the way around. I'm going to do every other one. Oh gosh, not with that one, I'm not. And it just gives a little something. There's always a little bit of decoration available. And there are in this kit as well the larger size gems too. So you have the option if you would rather have them elsewhere and bigger. The choice is yours. But I do very much enjoy doing the blinging at the end. So I'm going to call this card done. This is the second. The other thing to bear in mind, actually, she says she's done and she's never done, is we've got this super duper gel pen in the kit too. So what we could do is, in amongst all the little stars, just add some dots. And then you've got the sparkly bits now too. Just a few in amongst the sentiments. And it's nothing fancy. I'm just touching the gel pen onto the cardstock and sort of not quite scribbling a circle, but there we go. I am done now, I promise. I'll put it away. It's going here with my other card. So, 2. Let's pop these back. Okay, card number 3. And we have, I did a ladder effect on the last card. And obviously, by all means, that works. You could also do them stuck super tight to the end as like a post. You could put one on the inside. How shall we do this one? One, 2, 3, 4. The options just keep, they keep going. And it is a case of what is it you want the card to be for you? How do you think it's going to look the nicest? How is it going to make your recipient feel the best? Because it is just a case of playing. And you know what? Let's go with this because it is so different from the first one that I did. So we're going to, this is a repositionable tape, and that is going to make all the difference when you're trying to build one of these. So repositionable tape if you have any. If not, use a wet glue that is super slow drying. Now, again, these patterns, it doesn't matter which way up they go, so that it does lend itself well. So I'm going to now stick using my finger to push this end. It's a shame that it's white on white, but this end here, up here, and making sure that that side marries up as well. Stick that one down. I'm going to spin it. I'm going to add tape all across the back. And I'm just going to double check because now I've just done the wood piece. So now I need to do the patterned piece. And I'm going to do the same again. Now, this final piece is the one that's ever so slightly more tricky. We're going to tape up the one that we just stuck down, and we're going to tape this one at this point. And now, just as we did on the last one, we're going to stick this on this end, but we're not going to stick here. This end, we're going to bend up, we're going to let that drop, and then as we lay this top one down, we're just going to double check. So now we have this lovely square, which we can set as a diamond or as a square, whichever you prefer. But I think what we're going to do is add some specialty behind this because it is so pretty. And we're going to use, let's use this lovely green. Now I'm going to stick it straight on because this whole thing is covered in adhesive now. Straight down with a nice little border around the edge. And then I'm going to use my big scissors and I'm going to cut larger than the actual square. I'm not going to try and cut the right bit, I'm going to cut larger because this is the sort of thing that it will show if I've not cut straight. And because I've stuck my patterned paper on, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit around the edges of it all. And I'm going to use my trimmer. So I'm going to poke these in, and I haven't done it on a measurement basis, but what I do often use is the edge of this plastic piece from the blade is a really nice gap. So I'm not entirely sure what that official measurement is, but I line it up using that, making sure that it's pushed smooth up against the top. Give it a snip and see, now that is too wide. So I am going to have to go further across. And I think, remember, it's better to do 50 cuts than it is to cut too much and then have to come back again. Okay. That was a little bit terse live, but we did it. So now I'll remove those shiny bits. They may work for something else later on. But now I've got this lovely shiny green bit. Just a hint around the edges, which means that when I pull my ephemera pack out, whatever we pop in the middle, if it's got a gap itself, that will shine through. But if it doesn't, I mean, look at that. I think I may have, just the first one that I've picked out looks lovely. They're all going to look lovely, aren't they? Oh, I could, they would all work. It depends if you're going to make this, if you're wanting to make this a more masculine card, I would suggest the stag or the mountains perhaps. It just, or even better still, let's use this one because it's a lovely big piece. Yeah, we'll use that one. Let's pop these all off to the side. And now, the reason that I want to use this is because most of those would fit really beautifully in the middle. Now this one is actually a little bit big, I would say, because you're going to lose that nice pattern that we created. But we can pop it hanging off the edge of the square. It shows that nice bit of green in the middle, and that sits nicely, I think. So I'm going to foam the back of my square because I think this one's going to look nicer with a bit of lift. Let's You could, of course, always as well cut away the middle, leaving a small border frame, you know, with a knife. Be a bit fiddly. Make sure I've got the card base the right way up. And I'm looking at the top and the sides. And I believe that is around about equidistant around the edges. And I'm going to pop a single layer of foam here and double foam around that outer edge, because that's the bit that's going to hang off of the edge of the frame. Ooh. And we'll pop that there. And now I'm going to double depth. And here's some I made earlier, also quite handily on the live. Oh, that bit fell on the floor. It's okay, don't jump up, we don't need it. Okay, so off the edge that side, off the edge at the bottom. There we go. Now I'm going to remove all of my tape. And then going to just attach that down. This piece of tape was too wide. Should have dry fit that a bit better. Out you come, thank you very much. Of course, I do need that bit of tape now. That's what happens when you're sarcastic. Take that piece off, take this piece off. Double them up. These are nice and slim now, so they should tuck under really easily. It's not the most ideal way to build a card front up, but it means that everything is going to fit, which is what's the important bit. Okay, then just tuck the foam that is exposed in so that it can't be seen. Okay, so now we've managed to show the nice little bit of green in the middle, and we've got a space for a sentiment down here, but also because we've got that bit of shine, I think the thank you would actually work really nicely. And again, you can play with your placement, but I think I'm just going to pop this right down there. And those little mini heart peel-offs are going to come into play now. I'm going to grab one of the bigger ones. And these are the matte mini hearts, so they're brand new. And they're lovely because they add the accent, but they're not in your face. They're not over the top and demanding of lots of attention. One more, perhaps. I'll have to have a little count up. We would dreadful if we went over. Yeah, one more. Yep, we'll pop that one on there. Okay. So now we have card 3 done. Lots of nice shine on this one. This is a little bit more my speed. Okay, so now we are down to our 2 that are super similar. And there is really only one way that you can attach these down. So let's get them both stuck down. Double check you've got your top. And then you want to have about 1/8 of an inch around the edges at the top and the sides. And I do find it easier to turn the card upside down to make sure that's in the right spot. and then do the same at the bottom. I almost ignore the top piece of paper because if it's in the right place at the bottom, it will be in the right place regarding this. Now, of course, I've put the large piece at the top on that one, but you can put the small piece at the top. It does make them look very similar now, but let's do that. Let's put, need another tape gun, dear. Let's see if the glue wants to work now. Oh, I think we're okay. I think the glue is going to work. There we go. Okay. So we will attach this. You could, of course, as well, use exactly the same piece of pattern paper, and it just leaves a gap in it, doesn't it? It doesn't need to be two different designs. I think this glue got a real hammering over the weekend. I used it, I think, on every card. So it could just be that the bottle's empty. Any excuse to go shopping and get some more. Okay, so we are there. Okay, so now I've created, if you're giving these as a gift set as well, and that is a great gift set, because they're 5 cards, they all match, you can make a really pretty little box, and there are so many items. I want to pull everything out and use it. But this is a one sheet wonder, not 5 in a flash. I need to keep reminding myself. So on these, a really large piece of ephemera looks lovely. But also you can pop the small one in, leaving the paper to be the glory. So it is going to be just a case of what suits the sort of card that you want to share. Again, you could use your other thank you. You could even stick the thank you over and not have any ephemera. Keep it super clean and simple. Add perhaps a couple of peel-offs just to give it a little bit of a pop. But you could have a portrait card, landscape card, and use the super big pieces of ephemera. Or you could use it as an invite. Oh yes, let's use it as an invite for going away to the spa. I think that'd be nice. Okay. Where have I put my threads? Gone. Goodness knows where. They'll be here somewhere and I'll find them. Oh, there they are. I was thinking I'll find them straight after we're not live. Okay, I'm going to use this green with this one. Right, let's pop these all away because otherwise they'll just tempt me to change my mind like it just has. I think I'm going to use that one. That looks really pretty. Okay, so for this, I am going to get the green thread, which unravels beautifully, she says, and it won't do it for me now, will it? It's, you can use this as one, or you can split it up, as I'm doing, to create lots and lots of strands. It's like an embroidery floss, I think it's called here. We would call it an embroidery thread. But you can separate them all out and then use them individually just to create lots of lovely sparkle. So let me just get a couple of them away without unravelling the whole. Okay, so there's 2 here. Separate these. Lovely. Okay, so on the back of here, I am going to, yes, wet glue. Had to have a little think there. I'm going to wet glue all along the back. So, I'm going to tuck the end into some of this glue. You can use double-sided tape if you want for this part. In fact, we will. Otherwise we may end up fighting, and that's not going to translate well. Thankfully, double-sided tape will go straight over the wet glue and it won't complain at all. So, okay. Now, essentially what I want to do is create lots and lots and lots of loops. The more loops that I can create hanging off of the edge of this piece of ephemera, the more that we're going to see of it, essentially. You can hold the ephemera piece in the air and look at how big your loops are as you're creating them, but generally speaking, I would suggest that it is easier to do what I'm doing and work from the back and just trust the process. So now sticking it into the double-sided tape, creating a loop that hangs over the edge, around the edge of my die cut piece. And I'm just going to keep doing this, creating these loops by pressing it into the tape and turning it. It's always best, if you can, to avoid having the end poking out. So you want to make sure that the ends of your thread are stuck in. Right, so that is one technique. Let me show you another one. Another one is hold both ends, screw the length up in your hand and stick it down. And then at the end, stick your threads into it. You have much less control with this method, but it's a lot faster. Now, these threads are all sort of loopy and random over the edge, which is lovely. That's how you want it to look. Let's get rid of some of this rubbish. Now, I'm going to cut some foam tape to sit on top of the thread, but not be visible, hanging over the edge. Oh. And then just going to pop that one more bit there for a bit of extra support. Now, this, we can remove all of our tape. I like to use foam on this side of the thread so that the thread sits up from the card base a little bit. And there we go. Right, so I'm going to pop my piece right over the join there in the middle. And the thread is not in your face, but there is just this nice little bit of shine. And of course you can see it all in the middle as well, in the cutouts, which is really quite pretty. And at this point, I'm going to use some of our stars because I think they're going to look really pretty. Have I got a small triangle? No, I don't. Okay, they're going on the desk then. Right. Of course, he finds a whole stack, doesn't he, after I've tipped it. Typical man. Looks with his eyes closed. So this is how I usually like to get sequins out so that they don't spread everywhere. But then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some of the silver ones, I think. And then perhaps also an inner of the silver. These are random bags that you've got. You should have inners and outers of both gold and silver, but I make no promises because they were obviously a little random bags that we made. So now I'm going to get the big blob of glue off of the end, and I'm just going to wet glue by popping a dab in those corners, and then reverse tweezer where there is no glue and attach that down. Do the same with each of the 5. Now, of course, our mini stars do a very similar job to these, but it is nice to have the outer frame as well. So we thought we'd pop these in. Now this one I just sort of stuck in amongst all of the shelving there. So I'm hoping that I can get that to go back in again so that it's like peeking out. I do really enjoy sticking things so that it does create layer and texture. So popping something a little bit behind. And then one last one down here. Now this one I'm actually not going to put a sentiment on. I'm going to leave it as is because, again, if this is going to be a gift set that I would give someone, it gives them the opportunity to just have a card that they can write anything in, doesn't it? So there's this one. Right, now, last one. How are we going to do this? Or we could use a tag. That would look nice. Yeah, we'll use a tag. Any tag would work. In the kit there is both manila and craft tags, so either would work with this design. Let's pop that back over there. I'm going to stamp straight onto the tag, and I'm actually going to use Versamark because I like the look of tone on tone. So this is going to hang slightly over, so let's make sure that Just Breathe is there. And now I'm going to move my magnet round here, grab my Versamark, close it up, and then ink up the Just Breathe, which sometimes is actually a really helpful reminder. It can be easy to forget the simple things. And then I'm going to go in for a second one. I'm going to pull that knot out of the way. Just don't want anything to stop my stamp from getting a really lovely crisp impression. I'm going to go again. I think I may need to re-ink my Versamark. There's an outside chance that the dry here is winning the battle. This would also look really pretty if it was heat embossed. I don't have those on my desk at the moment, but if I pull you in on the close-up, I think you'll be able to see that. Just Breathe. And as it dries, that will become richer and deeper. So let's pull that off over here. Pop that stamp on there. And I think to create a little bit of background on this tag so that it's not just a solid tag. And I'm doing this by just going around the edges with these dots. I'm not going to stamp the whole thing because I don't want to lose the sentiment. So I'm just creating what looks like a border using my very Very dry, first mark. This would also look really good with white ink. Like a nice white pigment, it would, because that would sit on top of the craft and match in with the card base beautifully. So, nearly there. It's only a very little stamp, but the good thing about the little stamp means that you get to choose how much or how little to stamp. If this had have been a great big one, I wouldn't have been able to create such a nice detailed little border. And you can stamp over the top. It just adds texture and depth to it, so you don't need to worry about getting them all completely separate, but I think that shows up there now enough for you to see. And as that dries, that will deepen. So just breathe, then a lovely, lovely looking log cabin. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. I think we're going to need a little break very soon. He's not biting. Could someone help me out here? Nudge him in the right direction. Drop hints like atom bombs, he wouldn't notice. Right, so let's pop some tape up behind our lovely spa house. And get that attached onto our tag. There we go. And then I'm going to pop foam all behind this as well. There you go. Just snip out those corners. Great. Okay, now we're going to remove so this isn't quite 10 cards in 20 minutes like last week. Last week we did really well. Not that there was any faith offered from this side of the camera. Just breathe. And now this, I'm actually going to use a glue dot, if I can find them. There they are. I like the movement that you get from tag strings, but what I don't like is the option of them flapping all over the place. So just behind the knot, I'm going to stick a small, these are the mini glue dots, and then I'm just going to sort of attach that down. I'm going to leave the thread to do whatever it fancies, because again, I do like the movement there. But I believe now, if I can find them all, because they're all scattered around across my desk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have made from a one sheet wonder a set of 5. Oh gosh, there's a stamp. A set of 5 cards. So they're not. They were. What has this taken us? An hour or so, Liam? Just over an hour. So 20 minutes with, yeah, no, I think 2 sheets of paper, the ephemera, the stamps from the kit, and then a couple of, you know, like the tag and the thank you and some of the peel off stickers and some sequins. But this is very easily achievable. And if you're stumped as for a gift to give someone, for, you know, at Christmas time, spend an hour of your time making some cards and gift them the set. Give them some envelopes, and then I think that's a really nice gift. I'd be really pleased to receive that, because then they've got something that they can then forward on as well. So those were the 5 that I've just made, and these were the first that were a bit of a run through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it just goes to show that the pattern papers, even though it's the same collection, they can still look really nice and different. But even better still, you give them all 10 as a gift set. It's 2 hours of your time. It's a real gift. But whatever you make, please share it with us. I've started to see some of the Wicked Witches cards from our class going up in the Facebook group, and they're brilliant. We've also there's been someone sharing the colouring that they've done with the stamp set, because I didn't teach any colouring. I will do a Copic class and an Olo class, but I am not an expert in colouring. I can colour and I like colouring, but there are some truly, truly wonderful teachers out there. So I will offer it for those that want to try, but I don't like to include colouring in my classes because of the financial commitment for alcohol markers or, and any of the above. But anyhow, the class went really well. We're going to be sending a follow-up to all of our Wicked Witches alumni in the next 2 weeks. We will be possibly announcing a Black Friday sale on our newsletter. So please make sure you're signed up to that, just in case one goes out. I've really enjoyed this. We are back next week with a fun fold using the Winter Retreat card kit as well to give more inspiration. All of these cards will get posted in our website on the listing for the kit, so that you've got those as a reference point. Our design teams have their kit. They're going full steam ahead with making those. So I think, my lovelies, that is everything. So until next Tuesday, when I will be back with a fun fold, please make something beautiful. Bye.